Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for 5 Keys to Jumpstarting DevOps Change Management. My name is Adam O'Brien, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at SunView Software. And today's presenter will be Daniel Breston. He's the Chief of DevOps Transformation for Ranger 4.
Hello, Adam.
Hey, Daniel. Before we get started, I got a few housekeeping things I want to get out of the way. First of all, this webinar will be available shortly after its conclusion. In case you weren't able to make this or you wanted to catch up any of the important parts that Daniel presents. Second, make sure if you find this webinar valuable regarding the information, the content, make sure to share that with everyone. You would think that would find that valuable as well. And make sure to check out our supplemental infographic, Change Management for DevOps, Adapting to the Ever-Evolving World of Agile IT, which is attached to this webinar. And finally, if at any point you have any questions regarding the content that either Daniel or myself present, feel free to use BrightTalk's Ask a Question window to submit your question to the webinar panel. And finally, today's presenters, you already caught up with myself, and also we have Daniel Breston here. He has got a combined 40 years of experience in IT operations, ITSM, ALM, SIAM, and DevOps and Lean. Good morning, Daniel, and how are you doing?
Good morning, Adam. It's very good here in London, so very happy to join you for this event.
Fantastic. I can't wait to get to you. I have some great content. But before we get going, a few more slides here. We have our agenda. I'll make sure everyone knows where we're heading. We will have just up next shortly is Daniel running with 5 keys to jumpstarting your DevOps change management, as well as finally I'll be following up with some solution options for change management. And before we get started, one last slide. I do have a poll question that I wanted to run. And that is, how important is change management in your organization? And you have a couple different options. I'm kind of always curious to see how organizations are utilizing change management. And while that's going, we'll run that for about 30 seconds here. I also want to make sure that the content we have today, I would say, probably runs in the intermediate airspace of technical difficulties. So it's going to be some great stuff that for all either beginners or for those who are maybe more seasoned and experienced with ITSM and change management and are looking to dig deeper into the DevOps airspace. Cool. Looks like we have about 20 votes. We'll give it just a few more seconds here to get those votes in, and then we'll get going.
All RFCs. Wow. Okay.
All right. So it looks like the overwhelming option here is all RFCs go through our change management platform. That's about 75% of the total 24 votes that were cast. Followed up by, it looks like we only utilize change management for bigger impact RFCs at 17% of the voters. And then followed up with 8% of the vote got we use change management sparingly. And thankfully, no one selected that we currently do not utilize any change management platform. All right, and without further ado, I'm going to hand over the controls to Daniel. Daniel, you're all good to go.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Breston, and as Adam said, I'm Chief of DevOps Transformation for Ranger 4. We are going to talk today about change, the management of change, and how you can use the capabilities of DevOps to make that change occur better, faster, and safer. And just to set the tone, I really like these two speeches, or these two quotes, especially the top one from Nathaniel. The most likely way the world will be destroyed, most expert agrees, is by accidents. Thank goodness we're computer professionals. We cause accidents, which is sometimes the way I feel about how change was occurring in my organization when I was managing large environments. But then again, what I see as I go into our customer client base is that change is not necessarily understood, and everyone has a different way or desire of how to do that particular change. I found this study by Forrester rather interesting, and it was, how frequently are you able to make changes to your infrastructure? And In most organizations, change is a scheduled event. It's scheduled monthly, or it's scheduled every Friday, or it's scheduled on a quarterly basis. But it's a scheduled event. It takes a lot of work to create that schedule, to manage that schedule, and then even more work to make sure that sometimes after the change, you need to roll back, and if you can roll back, to make sure you didn't have any incidents. I have a question for you guys. It's not going to be a vote or anything, but think about this for a second. You went and agreed the change request. You put it into whatever meeting structures that you have and agreed the change request again. You then went and started to develop against that. And over the course of that development, you did some testing, and then you did some UAT testing, and maybe you did some performance testing, and possibly you did business continuity testing. And at some point in time, you were now ready to deploy whatever it was that you had built. It's interesting to me that the definition of an incident on one side of the spectrum is something is broke and we need to get it fixed. And the definition of something is broke and we need to get it fixed on the development side, that's called a defect. So what I try to do is try to get my teams to think about the fact that incidents are actually approved defects. And one of the things I like about DevOps is that DevOps gets you to start thinking differently. It's that collaborative and communicative movement of how do you organizationally create the right types of processes and interactions that best enable the use of technology in your organization to create value. And if you're approving defects to go live, aka having incidents, and most incidents probably can be linked to something that changed in your organization, then that's a bad plan. That's not what your internal or external customers want to see. So how do we overcome that? That's one of the great benefits of looking at the flow of work that you do, the type of feedback that you get before you release it out into the general environment, and then continually improving that, which is all about DevOps. And this further summarizes my slide of before, which is a large percentage of incidents in an organization result because of a change. The other common problem that I find is the problem of language. I'm here in England now. Obviously, by now, you realize that I was born and bred in the United States, in the great state of Texas. And one of the things that someone told me when I first arrived here in England was that England and the U.S. are two great countries separated by one great language. When they say things in English doesn't necessarily mean that I understand all the words. Some of their words have different meanings than what I was used to. And that occurs in the IT environment. What do we mean by change? Is it the entire process of change, or is it just the approval process of saying yes or no? Is it that capability of managing change from a life cycle perspective? So for those of you who said that all of your change went through some type of system, does that include organizational change? Does that include a new version of your service level agreement? Does that include a new contract that you went and put live? How much change is actually occurring in your organization that may or may not occur, or may or may not be tracked in that change management system? So what is the process of managing change? How are you going to control it? That's what change management, or the process of change management, should be all about. The development process and the test process should be as quick as possible. You should be looking at how do you go and integrate what you're developing into some environment so that as soon as possible you know whether or not it's going to work, whether or not it's actually taking that wish from the user and turning it into a requirement of that user. So how do you do that, and what type of feedback are you getting so that you know that what you're building and creating is going to be of value and meets the customer's needs as quickly as possible without over-egging it. And then get it ready. Get it ready to do that release. Have all that version control there. Be able to test and roll back. So it's that once it's deployed safely. To do that, you need to understand what are all the assets associated with your change. Not just the IT-related aspects, but the technology aspects. All of the people that are involved, all the suppliers that are involved, the processes that may have to be used, and plus your IT. And then how you configure those assets together to make sure that that release is properly controlled and managed when you deploy it is all under the control and governance of the change management process or philosophy. And this is what DevOps is trying to get to, that marriage of agile, doing things in an agile way, creating things quickly and minimally, using the best practices and techniques of IT service management, and then wrapping it around with a good governance and control structure. So this is the normal, ordinary, official change flow. I'm sure if anyone here is familiar with either COBIT or ITIL, they've seen many things similar. And it's not really important whether or not you can read all the words on it, but it is important as to how you perform this process and how you monitor this process. How do you know what good is when it comes to change management? What is good change management? What is your indicator of success that's key? Is it cost of delay? Are you looking at whether or not what you're doing is being done in the right order? So if I do this, that's benefit to the organization. If I spend time on this, maybe it's not. The cost of delay. Is it, am I changing something that will help me reduce my mean time to recover, restore, and repair? Is it something that really is going to add value to the organization so you can tie it to your one-page business case? How are you monitoring all of that for every single step? What is the length of time? What is the time to go through your registration process all the way down to, yeah, let's start doing this? We were taking apart 13 data centers, building 2 new ones across Europe. We were averaging 120 to 150 RFCs a week just in the IT team to handle that. And the change management meeting lasted no more than 20 minutes. The moment you had a question, the moment you thought that there was any type of issue, that change request was denied. So we could go through that very quickly. And in fact, a lot of it was all done in pre-work. There was very little time spent on the phone on things that had already been pre-approved. So in some organizations, if they had 120 to 150 requests, their change approval board would start on a Monday and end on a Friday. So think about how you're monitoring what's happening and how would you improve that. That's what the tools should allow you to gather that type of information if they're integrated together and help you to become better because you now have this feedback. Testing. Who's doing the testing? When is it testing? How automated is your testing? The moment the developer or the user hits enter, is that taking that code or that product or that feature into some type of environment that's as close as possible to your production environment? When I grew up in IT, it was difficult to replicate all our different environments because we'd have to keep buying mainframes. Now you can go and create an environment in 2 or 3 minutes using some APIs, and you're up and running. So having as close a replica as possible of your production environment, putting your test suite against the things that you're doing, and then enabling that continuously through your cycle, that's what you're going to be trying to get to. We're not trying to get everybody to release daily. That's a common myth around DevOps. We're not trying to get everybody to deploy daily. That's another common myth around DevOps. What we ask is, what is the velocity that you need to be able to do this? How are you going to do this? When are you going to do this in such a way that it makes sense for you? Some organizations do this every 11.6 seconds. They deploy into the live environment every 11.6 seconds. Some organizations are happy to do this weekly, but the effort to do that is minimized, and that allows people to go from the run and support of the change management process to the innovation of the changes that are required to keep the organization viable and productive and valuable to its customers and stakeholders. The easiest way to do that is to have indicators of performance that are key. Indicators of performance that are key to the organizations in terms of quality, indicators of performance that are key to the organization in terms of safety, i.e., did we cause incidents? Are our defects going down? Are we doing tests the way that we're supposed to be? Is it easy to do those tests? Do we have a test catalog that we can use? Is it enabling the process of business continuity, which is going to keep the business in business if there's any type of issue? If we have to roll back, is that easy to do? So those types of indicators of performance, you can pick 5, put them into a tree structure. Say, I'd like to have no incidents. Just pick a crazy target. And then ask the team below that to say, okay, if the goal is to have no incidents, what is it that we need to know? If an approved change is about to go live, what is the minimum information that we need to be able to go live? What then is the minimum type of testing that we need to go live? How do we then approve that in as automated as function as possible so that we can go live? So if you keep doing that, what you end up doing is you review this process backwards. You do what we call shift right thinking. The goal is to implement something. So instead of saying, let me make the process faster from the time that I registered through implementation, think about what would happen if the goal is to implement, well, I need to have some evaluation and work your way back up the tree. If you do that, you get some really neat, really cool indicators of performance that are key that improve satisfaction and reduce effort. The other thing is this spreadsheet that I'm highlighting here, which easily turns into a KPI tree, allows you to say who owns that role, who's responsible for those different types of metrics, who's responsible for the gathering of the data, and treat the tool like a person. We're now sophisticated enough that tools are responsible to perform an action. Tools are consulted. Tools are informed. So if you treat the tool like a person, when you go back and you really review this process, you start to see where your gaps are. And that helps you to use automation and integrate that automation in such a way that from end to end, you start seeing some great improvement. Keep reviewing this. Create a baseline. Work toward a goal. As you change something in your process, that's your new baseline. So again, make this an iterative cycle. And DevOps is very iterative because of its interaction with Agile, IT service management, and Lean. It's a very iterative process, top down. So take advantage of that knowledge. And the tools now are available to be able to support you across that. And then these are some sample KPIs, which I won't go into. And this is a recap of my stages of change, which I borrowed from Gene Kim. He's a great author, obviously, in the world of DevOps. He was one of the 3 authors for the best book currently out, the Phoenix Project. So if you haven't read that yet, you may want to have a look at that. But the goal of this slide is to really have questions against each one of your steps and make sure that you can answer them, because that really is what change is all about, is the answering of a question. My big tips for you are on here. I'm going to highlight some. Testing is key. Visualize what you're doing. Make your cabs as automated as possible, as short as possible. I have a client that actually, a very big client that actually has no change approval board meeting whatsoever. The process and teams are trusted such that they just go and do it, and the users work with them such that they know what's getting ready to happen, so that automation and those integrated tools facilitate that process. Always have a plan B. If there's not a plan B, there's no approved change. And finally, my 5 keys to jump-starting DevOps. Communication is all about change. Communicate what you're getting ready to do, but you don't need a formal meeting process to do that. Take advantage of your tools. Tools allow you to collaborate. Chat tools easily integrate now. Most of the major chat tools easily integrate now into most of the development and IT service management tools. Look into that. Agree on what success looks like. What does good look like? What are your key indicators of performance around what does good look like? The moment that something breaks in the process, stop and have a look at it. Think about what would happen if you got rid of the color amber and all you had was red and green. You're either doing it well or you're not doing it well. Make red a safe color, and that will enable your problem management processes across your organization and make things fun and simple. That's my overview of change. I'm going to give this back to Mr. O'Brien, and he will continue and finish off.
Great. Thanks so much, Daniel. That is a ton of great stuff that I'm sure I know myself will go back and watch again so I can get some of that stuff ingrained in my head as well. Well, I've got a couple more slides here, and one of the things that we've seen here at SunView is that there's an opportunity with change management, and that is that we want to see automation that is extremely critical for achieving efficiencies throughout all modes of IT delivery, whether it be ITIL or DevOps. And with that, we have a couple different recommendations. One is to make change a priority. Organizations need to ensure that they are making change management a non-negotiable. Not only does a change management platform provide a single source of truth for all your changes, but it also increases the visibility of risk and compliance management. Now, obviously, organizations are going to have different levels of interaction with that change management platform, but the key here is really, honestly, to make sure that you're tracking all your changes for audits, compliance, and also for reference if anything should, heaven forbid, go wrong down the road. Also, you want to establish different modes of change to fit your organization's need. A change management platform should allow your organization to utilize the modes of change it needs to properly balance speed, quality, and risk when assessing change requests. By streamlining processes that are linked to ITIL, DevOps, and standard non-IT or business practices, organizations are able to process change and increase adoption, all at the pace that their business needs and requires. And finally, you want to make sure that you can integrate change into your DevOps toolchain. With the burgeoning DevOps movement, it has become imperative that change management platforms offer the ability to integrate with DevOps toolchains. This allows for the automated capture of all change records, leading to improved collaboration amongst all of your teams, as well as the ability to build and recall an exhaustive auditable history. And with all of those in mind, we've here at SunView have listened to what our customers need, and the fruit of that is the newly released ChangeGear Change Manager, which is specifically engineered to support organizations that are leveraging Agile IT. With some key features such as multimodal workflows, which really give you the option to quickly and easily switch between ITIL, DevOps, and business modes of change. A DevOps integration through a REST API that allows you to put Change Manager within the same toolchain as, we'll say, Chef or Puppet or Docker, and automatically capture those change artifacts, as well as a CAB and peer review processing, which is built really to give you the best of both worlds for both ITIL and DevOps processes, whether that be a full-blown CAB for complete change request approvals, or a more hybrid peer-to-peer review processing that is all enabled with additional features such as a change calendar and change meeting notes as well. And then you also have a change management dashboard that allows you to quickly facilitate key metrics that Daniel went over and quickly adjust those on the fly to meet your business needs. And finally, it's got a full service management integration. Whether you're using our ChangeGear platform or a third-party platform, we can easily sit Change Manager within that and ensure that we are capturing all change records regardless of your service management platform. And finally, thanks everyone for hanging around. We had covered some great information regarding DevOps change management. If you want to take it another step further, we have a couple different ways. One is we do have a LinkedIn group, which is just change management for ITSM, which is designed to encourage and foster discussions around change management and how to use that best within your organizations and enterprises. You can also tweet out to SunView Software or Ranger4, and you'll see the handles right there. We also do have a page that's fully dedicated to the DevOps movement that has a lot of great stuff for change management as well. You can find that at sunviewsoftware.com/learn/DevOps. And finally, our SunView Bright Talk channel, where we continue to partner up with some of the great minds in the ITSM field, such as Daniel, and we'll be continuing to do that on a month-in and month-out basis. And finally, that leads us to some Q&A time. We got a few minutes here, Daniel, and I know I've seen some great questions come in already. Let's see if I can sort through some of the good ones here. Here's a great one. What's the best way for an IT department to jumpstart a CAB, especially if the idea has been met with a lot of criticism and lack of cooperation in the past?
The first question you should ask is, why do you have a CAB? What is the approval that you're trying to get to? What is the requirements of that? Who really needs to be involved? What can you do to facilitate that change meeting in such a way that the majority of the pre-approval work is done beforehand, and the change approval board is not a change information board, but actually a change approval board? You have one last question that you need to ask, and you're going to take advantage of that particular request to ask it. But make it short. The thing that people don't like about change approval boards is that they wait for, 50 minutes for their 5 seconds of fame. And that's what kills everything. So you really do need to find a way to facilitate turning the meeting into an approval process and do your external work outside it.
Perfect. And actually, that flows into our next question, Daniel, is we have a lot of processes already in place, and I've been looking into automating a lot of those lower impact requests for change to help ease the stress on the staff. Is there such thing as too much automation?
The culture of an organization, the way that they interact, the processes that it enables, you put that onto a wall with a bunch of Post-it notes, and then you write on those Post-it notes who does what, when, and why. And on another Post-it note, you put some type of KPI, and that's your first level of automation. The second level of automation is that now that you've started to standardize that work, and standard means that the people that have to do it have developed a way that they feel safe to do that particular step inside that process. Once they feel comfortable with that, now you can automate it. The problems that I see is that people don't continually improve that standard way of working because a bunch of process engineers are going and telling them what they need to do instead of just letting them get on with it. So the best concept of automation is to have all the right people in the right place to use that automation to facilitate that flow of idea to realization. So to me, it's not is automation too much. It's getting automation in the right place at the right time.
That is fantastic. And we actually got two more questions here that I think will fit quite nicely in this little group we got going. The first one is a little bit longer one. We're going to get through this. Okay, so in the DevOps world, the velocity of changes are much greater. Given this, what do you believe should be the decision criteria in determining the level of granularity to which change management should be enacted? Take, for example, in the mobile web world where updates are constantly being pushed out. Wouldn't change management slow down this process to a point where updates simply wouldn't be able to happen fast enough?
So think about how many changes Google or Amazon or MSN or NBC or somebody pushes out to their website on an hourly basis. They don't have a cab every time they go and change something. Their process is automated and slick and takes use of the technology that's available and the trust of the people that is provided such that change occurs matching the velocity of the organization. So I don't buy that argument that the process of change management slows things down. To me, the process of change management speeds things up. I put the right governance in place at the right time. I understand what that means. I standardize that. I automate that. That makes me faster.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. I think we have time for one more. Is it possible to be too fast or hasty when it comes to change approvals?
Yes. You don't know what you're changing. You haven't particularly changed it. You don't have the right people involved, in which case, learn how to say no. The goal of change management is to make sure that your organization stays up, isn't impacted, doesn't have a regulatory risk, or isn't placed out into the public domain for having done something stupid. So, make sure that your change management process is performed at the right level.
When in doubt, it's always never a bad idea to step aside and take a little breather. Well, that covers everything. Daniel, thank you so much for bringing the excellent information regarding DevOps and change management. And I know I definitely learned a few great things. And thank you, everyone, for hanging out and listening to what we had to say. If you want to follow up with SunView, we have our website at sunviewsoftware.com. And you can also find us at the links below for LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. For those of you who want to dig deeper into this, we will have this slide deck up and available on our our LinkedIn SlideShare account, and that should be actually up already, thanks to my great team here, and you can go check that out. And once again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out through Twitter or through our website. Thank you so much, Daniel. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to hanging out with you in the future soon, and everyone have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, everyone.